Well, that's pretty much it. We've come to the end. This is essentially the last video in the training series. There's actually one more little video after you complete the training assessment, which just explains the working with children check process for those of you who haven't already done that. But otherwise, look, thank you for bearing with us throughout this training. I certainly hope that whether or not you choose to join us here at Top of the Class, I certainly hope that you found this training to be helpful. Now, keep in mind that only about 10% of all applicants even reach it to this stage. So that certainly means that I feel confident based on your application that you'll make a great tutor. From this point onwards, however, we just need to make sure that you know exactly what to do as well, which is why the training assessment is below. It also, as I said earlier, acts as a filtration device that separates people who have actually gone to the effort of following the video series all the way through and those who have just sort of rushed through it. So my advice when doing the training, you'll see below there's 20 short questions. Some of them are multiple choice, some of them are short answer. But don't rush through it. If you're uncertain, go back to the videos that are relevant to those questions and make sure you answer with 100% accuracy. Now also at the end of the assessment quiz, it'll ask you to put in your exact days and times of availability. So if that changes in between the time that you do the quiz and we get your first student, please let us know. And then from that point onwards, you can keep your availability updated using the TeachWorks program. The other thing that you'll see below underneath the questions is it asks you to upload a photo of yourself. Now, I've actually found that tutors who provide us with a good photo of themselves have a much higher likelihood of getting lots of students. If you don't provide us with a photo, you've got to understand that parents are often very reluctant about having this stranger come into their home to sit down and work one-on-one with their kids. So if they can see a photo of it that looks both friendly and professional, it massively increases the probability that parents who come here inquiring about you will decide to go ahead with you. Now at this stage, a lot of applicants don't want to submit a photo because they feel that they don't have one that's good enough yet. And then they say, oh, I'll go out and get a professional photo taken, but then never get around to it, and then they never get around to it, and then months later, they're wondering why they're not getting any students. So look, as long as you're smiling, looking relatively friendly, and as long as you're dressed in a way in the photo that looks relatively professional, you know, don't have a picture of yourself at a nightclub or something kind of dodgy like that. Don't have a photo where you're looking kind of creepy. I've had a few weird ones like that. You've got to keep in mind how you're going to be perceived by the parents. So it can just be an ordinary selfie you can take with your phone and send it to me. Again, just relatively friendly and professional, and it makes a big difference to the way that you're perceived when I mean, it's essentially our job to sell you to the parents. It's our job to say, look, this person is a great tutor, they're going to be fantastic with your son or your daughter, in a situation where the parents are feeling very reluctant, very uncertain, very sort of even intimidated about this stranger coming to their home. They don't know anything about you, they don't get to talk to you first. So if they can see a nice photo of you, read something positive about your background and experience, makes a big difference to that mental hurdle that they have to leap over when making the decision to go, yes, okay, I'll give this person a try, see how they go. So after you complete the assessment quiz below, it'll send us through your responses. We'll check through your responses and we'll send you an email, usually within 2 business days, notifying you as to whether you've been successful or not. And if you have, usually I'll give you a call too, just to touch base too. Now, if you have been successful, the next step is I'll send you out an envelope in the post, which will contain a few documents. Firstly, it'll contain a little welcome letter, welcome to Top of the Class, etc. And it will contain an employment contract. Now, with the employment contract, it's a big document full of legal stuff, so please have a read through it. It is pretty important, even though it's all technical stuff. You just sign and date on this page. There we go, you can see that. And fill out all your details on Schedule A and Schedule B. Now please remember to send back the entire contract. If you would like a copy of the contract yourself, you can actually download it directly underneath this video. You can just click on the link there and print that out if you say you've got a copy for yourself. Now the other thing that will be contained in that envelope is a tax file declaration form. Now this should look familiar to you if you've ever had a job before. The only thing that I want to make sure I draw your attention to is question 8. Now question 8 asks, do you want to claim the tax-free threshold from this employer? Now I'll just put this up on the screen so you can see a better copy there. Now technically, if this will be your second job and you've already got another job somewhere else where you've claimed the tax-free threshold from that employer, technically you're supposed to tick no if this is your second job. Keep in mind, however, that if you do tick no to question 8, it means that we will have to start taxing you at the highest rate, which can be, I mean, it means you get a bigger tax return back at the end of the financial year, but it means each week you'll be taxed fairly heftily. So, well, just keep that in mind. Consult a tax agent or an accountant if you have any uncertainties about that. But otherwise, if you tick yes, then you have to be doing quite a few number of lessons each week before you go over the tax-free threshold. Now, when you send back your completed tax file declaration form and your employment contract. The third thing that you need to make sure that you remember to send us back is 100 points of JP Certified ID. This is a thing that a lot of people forget to send back. Please make sure that you remember to include that. If you're not sure what 100 points of ID is, there's another link below this video that explains it. It's usually the easiest combinations are a driver's license and a birth certificate, or a driver's license and a passport. Now, please don't send the original copies back, obviously. You just take your 100 points of ID, you go down to a JP, you photocopy it, you show them the original, they sign it, and then you send the photocopies back here to us at the office. Now, once you receive your first student, you'll be all excited. We'll send you out another envelope in the mail. This second envelope will contain a few different things, so I'll run you through that just quickly. And the first things you may have already guessed, it will contain a bunch of blank paper with company logo, letterhead. That's for writing to your students' teachers once a month. Now, it is common that it might take a few months before they finally get back to you. And once they do get back to you, generally most teachers prefer to communicate by email or sometimes by phone. So you won't necessarily need to write handwritten letters every single month. Usually after they get back in touch, they'll just want to email you. Now, the second thing that this envelope will contain is an iron-on logo. These things can be a little bit expensive, so we won't send you out heaps of them at first. We'll send you out more as you get more students. These things, as you saw Tyler did in that video, you can just iron it on to a shirt of your choosing. That way it saves us from having to measure you up with a uniform, which can be a little bit difficult seeing as you're out there remote. I would suggest, however, putting a few stitches in this. You can just stitch it on, but if you only iron it on, apparently after many, many times in the washing machine, it can start to come off. So you might want to stitch it on as well. Now, the third thing that you'll receive in that envelope is a bunch of contact cards, now you can write your own details on here. Make sure that you give at least one of these to every client. See, they're double-sided, pretty cool, for every new client that you get. A lot of time is wasted here at the office when clients ring up saying, look, I'm trying to get in touch with my tutor to let them know we need to cancel this afternoon's lesson, can we make it up tomorrow? To which we'll say, well, you can just contact the tutor directly for that. And they'll say, oh, well, we don't have their contact number. So please remember to leave at least one card with each client. I'd also recommend sending them a text message reminding them to store your number in their phone too. That way they can contact you back and forth directly. Okay, now the most frequently asked questions by new tutors at this stage is, how long is it going to take me to get a new student? And how many students am I going to get? How busy am I going to be? Now, there is no 100% guarantee answer to this question, unfortunately. It varies enormously. In terms of how long it takes you to get the first student, I mean, sometimes we have students ready for you straight away, other times it can take like a term. And in terms of how many students that you get, again, this depends on a few different factors. For example, time of year. Certain times of year are busier than others. When report cards go home, when there are major assessment tasks coming up, at the start of the new year, when people want to make a new fresh start, these times can be a little bit busier than other times. Your location, certain socio-demographic areas are busier than others. Your availability has a big role as well. Obviously, if you're only available on a couple of hours a week, that limits us as to how many students that we can give you. Another thing is the subject areas that you teach. If you're willing to teach kindy all the way through to year 12 and you can teach English and or maths, obviously that means we can give you more students. So look, let me give you the best case scenario and the worst case scenario. The best case scenario was actually not too long ago. It was in the Sutherland Shire of Sydney. It was a new grade school teacher who was a qualified high school English teacher. She was willing to teach primary all the way through to year 12 English. And she started with us around the beginning of term 3, which is a really busy time. And so by the time she got her paperwork back here at the office, we already had 5 students for her lined up just ready to go from straight away. On the other hand, the worst case scenario that I can think of, again, was in Sydney, Mount Druitt out in the western suburbs. This guy was an overseas university academic. His English was okay, but it wasn't fantastic. Didn't provide us with a photo of himself. He was only willing to teach senior chemistry and only on Saturday and Sunday mornings. So it was just very, very restrictive. And that was probably about 4 months ago now, and we still haven't been able to line him up with a new student. So look, that gives you a rough sort of idea, but ultimately there's no way of being able to predict with 100% accuracy how long it's going to take and how many students we can get you. I would say on average, from the time that we provide you with your first student, most tutors are completely booked up within a term. So from the time you get your first student, within about 10 weeks or so, you'll probably be saying, well, okay, that's enough, I'm booked out, I don't have any more time spaces available left. So that gives you a rough idea. Now, the other frequently asked question by new tutors is, how does the payment system work? Well, you don't need to collect money from clients. In fact, it's probably best not to talk about money at all with clients. Sometimes they're like, oh, how do I pay for this? And by that stage, they have already been provided with the details. They've given us their credit card number. We won't book a new student unless we already have their card details. So they know. You've got to be really careful. Sometimes depends on the area, the location, but some people can be a little bit dodgy and go, oh, how much do you get paid? Or how about we just give you cash and we'll cut out the middleman? Now, look, if that ever happens, firstly, notify us straight away. They have signed a contract, you have signed a contract saying that you're not allowed to do that. We would go out of business if that happened. Look, if somebody's going to rip off a company to save 10 or 20 bucks here and there, I would like to think that they would be thinking of ripping off someone who is not the company providing them with fantastic benefit for their child's future. Of all the priorities in their life, I think that's a bit sleazy of a thing to do. But if that ever happens, please let us know if anybody offers you cash or say, look, let's just forget the company. So they pay by credit card. Now, they pay each Monday for the previous weeks. We do that automatically, and we do that based on what you've ticked off on TeachWorks by the end of the week. So remember that by the end of each Saturday, you need to have logged into TeachWorks, tick off the lessons that you've done, delete the lessons that you haven't. If you haven't done that and we can't get in contact with you to chase it up, it creates all sorts of billings. I mean, people's credit cards get billed incorrectly. If we don't have your correct details by the end of the week, we don't charge them for those lessons, which means you don't get paid, for one thing. You'll have to wait till the next week to get paid because we only do payments on Mondays. And they probably won't notice that they haven't been billed that week. But they will notice very much that they've been double charged the following week, and then they get confused, they ring up, they get angry. We lose quite a few clients that way, especially when we have to turn around and say, look, I'm sorry, the reason that your credit card has been billed inconsistently was because your tutor forgot to log in on time. That's not a good look. It makes people a lot more frustrated and cranky than what a lot of tutors seem to realise. That when I tell this to a lot of tutors, they're just like, oh, what's the big deal? It is a big deal to them, okay? They like their billing to be very consistent every single week with 100% predictable. So it is a very, very, very important thing to remember to log into TeachWorks to tick off your lessons at the end of each week and keep your availability updated as well. That's important. In terms of your pay, it'll go in, we handle all the payment processing each Monday. The exception will be if it's a public holiday, it'll happen on a Tuesday. So you should receive your pay slip by email each Monday. Always look at the message attached to your payslip too. If there's any updates, and there frequently are, any message that I need to send out to everybody, I'll always send out the message attached to that email payslip on Monday. So the funds should go into your bank either Monday or Tuesday, depending on who you bank with. So yeah, that's how the payment system works. Now, as for superannuation, look, most of our tutors don't earn enough to go over the super threshold anyway. For those who are either on a higher pay rate or doing quite a few lessons, then they'll go over the super threshold. We'll start making super contributions for you. We can automatically generate a super fund account for you through Australian Super. If you have a preference, if you have a super fund you'd already like to use, you can just fill in the details on Schedule B of the employment contract. We can use that for you. Now, as for contacting us here at the office, so far you probably would have been corresponding with us through the applications at topoftheclass.email address. That's the email address that obviously we use to correspond with new applicants. So we only check that every now and then when we're advertising for new tutors. Once you actually join our team and become a tutor with us, you'll need to email us at tutors@topoftheclass.com.au. That's the email address that we correspond every day with our tutors out there in the field. You'll receive your pay slip from admin@topoftheclass.com.au. There's a few different email accounts that we use for different purposes. So when you're communicating with us directly, use tutors@topoftheclass.com.au. That way you'll get a faster response. Now, if you've sent through an email and you're not getting a response within a few days, sometimes we get far more emails and messages than people realise. So if you want to get through straight away, give us a call. If you'd like to speak to me directly straight away, call my mobile. The number's up here on the screen. Don't send me a text message, don't send me an email, call my mobile, you'll get through to me straight away. And if I don't answer the phone straight away, leave me a voicemail message. And in the message, tell me what it's about. Don't just say, hi, it's Claire from one of your tutors, give me a call back, give me some details. That's just part of efficient communication. Now we're almost at the end. There's just one last little thing that I'd like to discuss with you. And that is the fact that a lot of the things that we've looked at so far in this video training course could really be described as just, well, little things, Remembering to maintain a professional appearance, having a good voicemail message, remembering to leave your contact card with the client, remembering to touch base with them straight away as soon as you receive new client's details, remembering to give them a call 2 hours before each lesson, remembering to have a chat with the parents at the end of each lesson about the student's progress, remembering to spend a couple of minutes at the end of each term writing a progress report, a couple of minutes here and there to write to teachers, etc., etc. All these things are really just, in the bigger picture, just little things seemingly. The thing that I'd like you to remember is that big changes are actually usually the consistent accumulation of small changes all put together. So making a big impact, therefore, requires remembering to put all those little things together as well. In fact, often big problems are actually the consistent accumulation of all those little problems that have gone overlooked. A lot of these things are very easy to overlook because you are out there on your own, working completely unsupervised. You have to remember to take the initiative to do these things yourself. You're not going to have staff meetings or a boss looking over your shoulder reminding you to do that every step of the way. So the point that I'm making is this. If you, like me, chose this career path because you had a strong desire to make a big difference in the lives of your students, then just remember, never overlook the little things, because it's when all the little things are put together, that's when we can help to make the biggest difference. Good luck with the assessment quiz below. I look forward to speaking to you soon.